Mortal Kombat, a franchise forged in controversy, sharpened by fatalities and fueled by the blood of the 1990s arcade scene. Recently on this channel, we've ventured deep into the gory legacy of the original trilogy, explored the awkward transitional years of Mortal Kombat 4, and even dared to revisit the notorious spin-off known as Sub-Zero Mythologies. Then of course we unravelled the twisted tale behind Deadly Alliance, the so-called Mortal Kombat 5 that tore up the rulebook and laid the groundwork for the modern era. Holding such thoughts, it's only fitting that today we descend even further into the depths of Outworld to uncover the next chapter in this violent saga. Next up, I'll present to you a story of deception, both literal and thematic, where ancient alliances crumble, forgotten realms return, and the very foundation of Mortal Kombat are challenged. But beneath the polished exterior of the next release lies something darker. This was a game that not only dared to blend brutal tradition with ambitious innovation, but existed as a project that was haunted by the pressure to prove that Deadly Alliance wasn't just a fluke. What followed wasn't just another sequel, it was a defense, a counterattack, a studio's desperate fight to stay relevant in an era dominated by 3D fighters with, by this point, far slicker reputations. So with all of that in mind, join me today as we peel back the layers of secrecy surrounding one of the most intriguing chapters in Mortal Kombat's history. Not only will we explore the development of the franchise's sixth main entry, but we'll travel back to a time when the project was still shrouded in mystery, simply known to the public as Mortal Kombat 6, a name whispered across forums, teased in magazines, and attached to a prototype build that remarkably still exists to this day. Love it or hate it, for many fans this entry came to embody the chaotic, unpredictable spirit of the mid-2000s fighting game scene. A time when Mortal Kombat was trying to reinvent itself, and the results were anything but ordinary. So let's celebrate its entire history today. Hello ladies and gentlemen, Big Daddy Top Hat here. This is the story of how Mortal Kombat 6 tried to outdo its own resurrection. Not with refinement, but with deception. Hard to believe, isn't it? Over 30 years have passed since Mortal Kombat burst into the arcades with a blood-soaked uppercut, and somehow after all the drama, dimension hopping, and dodgy spin-offs, it's still chugging along. If you haven't yet stepped into the arena with Mortal Kombat 1, this might be your moment. Why? Because right now you can pick up this timeline twisting reboot at a massive 63% off by using my link below. That's not all. If you're anything like me, you probably are a retro gamer who grew up in the golden age of Turtles games. Well, good news, as I've also have for you 78% off of the Cowabunga collection, which brings back all 13 classics, including the full Game Boy trilogy, arcade hits, and Super Nintendo gems, all packed with extras like design documents and concept art. You can also get up to 90% off of loads of other games too, from Shredder's Revenge to Street Fighter 6, Streets of Rage 4, Fatal Fury City of the Wolves, and so many more. Enjoy the bargains and the rest of this video. The earliest online traces of the title, Mortal Kombat 6, date back to 2003, when speculation around the next installment in the series began circulating across gaming forums and publications. Around this time, IGN reported that following an earlier article in PSM issue 71 from May 2003, Mortal Kombat co-creator Ed Boon had confirmed his team was already working on the next mainline entry, then tentatively titled Mortal Kombat 6. According to Boon at the time, the game was being rebuilt entirely from the ground up, and was targeting a 2004 release and might include online functionality. However, after speaking with their own contacts at Midway, IGN confirmed that online play wasn't merely a possibility, it was already locked in. This led to them confirming that the next Mortal Kombat title would definitely launch with online support. Beyond that, the only other detail IGN was able to verify at the time was that Mortal Kombat 6 was being developed for multiple platforms, and that fans would likely have to wait a while longer for any further announcements or an official press release. Digging deeper through IGN's past content, in February of the following year they would publish an article with special thanks to the world's largest Mortal Kombat fan site, Mortal Kombat Online, who had previously unveiled the very first leaked image from the then upcoming multi-platform sequel Mortal Kombat 6. The high-res image, which depicted a furious looking Baraka, was sent to the site by a source close to the project. Even at a glance, the visual detail shown in the render far surpassed what fans had seen in 2002's Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance, though fans across forums debated whether the image was a screenshot or a character render, but the consensus quickly shifted towards its legitimacy, a sentiment confirmed by MKO webmaster Scott Howe when he spoke with IGN at the time, confirming that we received the first image from an anonymous source in bitmap form late last night, Howe explained. In the morning, the source sent us a second image of Baraka in a bigger, clearer JPEG format and told us to enjoy it and not to ask any questions. The letter also mentioned that more images would be coming soon and to keep an eye out. It went on to say we wanted to make sure the image was real before we posted it on our site, so we contacted two separate sources close to the project, both of whom confirmed it was genuine. This leak marked the second major development surrounding Mortal Kombat 6 within the same week, as just days earlier, Midway had officially registered the domain names mkdeception.com and mortalkombatdeception.com on February 6, 2004, strongly hinting at the game's eventual title well before any public announcement had been made. On February 27, 2004, Midway officially pulled back the curtain and announced Mortal Kombat Deception for both PlayStation 2 and Xbox, releasing the game's first teaser trailer to accompany the reveal. IGN would report that while the 51-second trailer consisted mostly of CG footage, it still managed to showcase a number of intriguing hints about the game's direction. The most notable reveal was that a fully interactive and destructible environments were included, a first for the series. The implication was clear. Midway was introducing Dead or Alive 3 style stage transitions and environmental hazards into the mix, adding an entirely new layer of strategy and spectacle to the traditional combat formula. Even fatalities appeared to be integrated into these mechanics. The press release accompanying the trailer teased the return of both secret and classic characters. From the footage, fans were able to identify Baraka, Scorpion, Melina, and Sub-Zero as confirmed roster members. As for the rest, speculation ran wild across online forums and fan communities, with many engaging in frame-by-frame breakdowns to uncover every possible clue. Interestingly, the trailer gave us no indication as to whether the multiple fighting styles that defined Deadly Alliance would return. However, the press material stated that the game would feature lightning-fast hand-to-hand and special weapons combat. The cutting room floor notes a number of fascinating details about the original Mortal Kombat Deception trailer, revealing just how early and unfinished the build on display really was. Among the most striking observations is the use of different fighting styles compared to the final release, and the fact that Noob Saibot's health bar displays Havoc's character icon, a subtle but telling reminder that Havoc was originally conceived as Noob's alternate costume. Most of the voice clips used in the trailer were recycled from Deadly Alliance, and notably there were no full scream sound effects during environmental destruction sequences. The HUD for Conquest mode was also entirely different, with the Earthrealm village simply labelled as Newtown and Shujinko still referred to by his internal placeholder name, Monk. Chess Combat, which we will touch more on later at this stage, was known under the working title Board Game, and many of its visual elements appeared noticeably different. Similarly, puzzle combat footage included what seemed to be a frame rate counter along the bottom of the screen, a strong indication that the footage came from a debug build. Even the dragon icon used for the mode was borrowed from Deadly Alliance, and there was no grunt sound effect when characters were hit. Altogether, these details offer a rare and revealing look into Deception's development, showcasing just how much the game evolved before its final release. The next major turning point in this game's history would occur in May of that same year. Mortal Kombat Secrets.net specified that month the German edition of official PlayStation 2 magazine, OPM, featured a preview of Mortal Kombat Deception that sparked considerable intrigue, particularly due to the inclusion of details from what Midway later described as an outdated and unofficial gameplay document. While Midway downplayed the document's accuracy at the time, the game itself would go on to confirm that much of the information within it was in fact correct. As such, this particular preview has since become a fascinating reference point for fans exploring the game's early development. One of the most compelling pieces of information to emerge from the article was the first mention of a character referred to as Scab. According to the magazine's translated description, Scab was portrayed as one of the most grotesque fighters ever conceived in the series, with it reading, "Scab is the most disgusting of all fighters. If you take a closer look, you will see parts from his rotting corpse and a skeleton." The magazine even included a render of a character whose design was later recognised by fans in one of Deception's official trailers. However, by the time the character appeared in the game, the name shown beneath his life bar was no longer Scab, it was Noob. This discovery marked the beginning of what would later become the Noob Saibot Havoc narrative thread, with Scab effectively serving as an early design placeholder for Noob's new visual direction. At the time, several websites speculated that the character known as Scab only appeared in the Mortal Kombat Deception trailer due to it being based on an unfinished build of the game. The prevailing theory was that Scab was merely placeholder content, possibly a scrapped character, and that he couldn't possibly be tied to Noob Saibot as an alternate costume. However, later revelations told a different story. Production artwork eventually surfaced, confirming that the development team had indeed intended for Scab to serve as an alternate costume for Noob. The design was grotesque and visually distinct, drawing heavily from Scab's earlier render, as seen in the German official PlayStation 2 magazine preview. Ultimately, the team decided that this particular model was too unique to be relegated to an alternate costume. Instead, they elevated the design to a standalone fighter, and thus the character Havoc was born. Originally tied to Noob Saibot's visual identity, Havoc would go on to become one of the more bizarre and memorable entries in Deception's expanding roster. The same OPM Germany article also mentioned several other characters, some of which made it into the final game, and some that did not. At that time, it noted that Cabal and Sector were probably going to be part of the roster, though it added a question mark to both names. As development progressed, Cabal remained and was included in the final release, but Sector was ultimately cut. More curiosities came in the form of early or placeholder character names. The article listed Dairu, who appears in the finished game, alongside three others: Ken Masters, a female version of Kano, and a mysterious figure named 24. While the names initially baffled readers, their identities later became clear. Ken Masters was in fact the early codename for Cobra, a character heavily inspired by martial arts archetypes. The unnamed female Kano became Kira, and 24, speculated to be a reference to a customizable protagonist in Conquest mode, was eventually revealed to be Shujinko, the game's central story-driven character. Dairu was originally planned to appear in Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance, but for reasons unknown he was ultimately left out of the final game. Evidence of his early development did, however, make its way into the finished product. A piece of production art showcasing his original outfit was unlockable in the crypt, offering fans a glimpse at what might have been. By the time Mortal Kombat Deception entered development, Dairu's character design underwent significant changes. His 3D model was extensively reworked, with the final version bearing only a loose resemblance to the early concept seen in Deadly Alliance. Looking back, this magazine preview, though based on what Midway dismissed as outdated material, proved surprisingly accurate, offering fans an early glimpse into the evolving creative direction behind Mortal Kombat Deception. Later that same month, a new Mortal Kombat Deception trailer was shown at E3 2004, presenting a version of the game much closer to the final retail build, yet it still featured several noteworthy differences that offer insight into the game's late-stage development. The cutting room floor document that one subtle change was the colouring of the blood splatter on the skull in the bathhouse stage, which differed from the final version. Once again, many of the voice clips used were recycled from Deadly Alliance, indicating that final voiceovers were still being implemented. In terms of mechanics, Ermac's telekinesis slam lacked the visual aura effect on Li Mai, although the full screams from environmental destruction, absent in earlier builds, had now been added. Visually, the beach stage appeared less refined, missing the dynamic lighting effects tied to time of day transitions. Chess combat also showed signs of being in flux. The ability, player, description and fighter text all appeared in a different font or layout, and the target piece labels had not yet been finalised. Conquest mode still lacked voice acting entirely, and its HUD differed from the retail version. Meanwhile, puzzle combat continued to use placeholder grunt effects borrowed from Deadly Alliance. All in all, the E3 trailer highlighted the game in its final stages of polish, offering a rare glimpse at content and effects that was still being adjusted just months before launch. Crafted under the direction of series co-creator Ed Boon, Mortal Kombat Deception wasn't intended to be just another sequel. It was a calculated strike designed to jolt the franchise forward in ways fans never expected. From the outset, the goal was to surprise players with a blend of returning icons and brand new faces, while evolving the series into something darker, more immersive and more brutal than ever before. To achieve this, core mechanics like combos and arenas were completely reimagined, not just to reflect a grittier, more realistic tone, but to make every fight feel alive, unpredictable and drenched in chaos. But perhaps the most daring move of all, the team built the game from the ground up with online play in mind, at a time when no other fighting game had dared to fully commit to that frontier. Deception wasn't just trying to follow in the footsteps of Deadly Alliance, it was out to carve a new legacy, one vicious uppercut at a time. From the very beginning, Mortal Kombat Deception was envisioned as a game that would defy expectations. Ed Boon made it clear that this wasn't just about adding new characters or polishing old mechanics, this was about crafting unpredictability, a game that would deliver features fans could never imagine. To make that vision a reality, the team at Midway did something rare for the early 2000s. They actually listened. Scouring online bulletin boards, forums and fan discussions, the developers took notes directly from the community, shaping everything from the character roster to surprise features based on what players actually wanted, and what they never saw coming as well. That desire to astonish led to the addition of two now iconic minigames, Chess Combat and Puzzle Combat. Chess Combat had originally been considered for Deadly Alliance, but time constraints shelved the idea. With Deception, the team finally brought it to life, merging strategy and brutality in a way only Mortal Kombat could. Boon and producer John Podlasek oversaw the development process, breaking the team into specialized groups who worked across different areas of the game. Their challenge to evolve the franchise without losing its soul. Every element from the characters' animations to the combo systems were designed with that goal in mind. The visuals were upgraded to make players' inputs feel more responsive, and long absent characters like Sindel, Nightwolf, Melina and Baraka were brought back from exile. Even the arenas were reimagined as deadly extensions of the gameplay, with interactable elements and death traps that could turn the tide of battle in a split second. The infamous Liu Kang's tomb, for example, began life as an entirely different stage featuring weapon-based combat before being repurposed into a moody shrine of vengeance. Combo systems were overhauled to emphasize strategic execution, giving each character a unique rhythm and weight that demanded mastery. Background stages became more than just scenery, they were weapons in their own right, designed to influence the outcome of a fight as much as the fighters themselves. And of course, it wouldn't be Mortal Kombat without a fresh dose of blood-soaked spectacle. Riding high on the reception of Deadly Alliance, the team doubled down on fan favourite features, giving each character 2 fatalities and introducing the now notorious Harakiri system. A mechanic that allowed the losing player to perform a finishing move of their own, turning every fight into a morbid race to the end. Carlos Pesina and his team of animators were given free rein to push the envelope, crafting some of the most disturbingly memorable finishes in series history. Melina's fatality, in which she devours her opponent's neck, was infamously based on Pesina's own performance, a darkly comic twist behind one of the game's most grotesque moments. But perhaps the most ambitious gamble was online play. In an era where few console fighters had even touched the concept, Deception made it a central pillar. Midway's engineers spent nearly a year determining whether it was even possible. Once confirmed, the team focused development squarely on the PS2 and Xbox, the two platforms with the most viable online infrastructure at the time. Nintendo's GameCube, due to its lack of native online support and the technical hurdles it posed, was sidelined at first until those challenges could be resolved. The result was a game that didn't just build on what came before, it tore through expectations and rebuilt Mortal Kombat into something darker, deeper and far more dangerous than anyone had anticipated. Deception wasn't just a follow-up to Deadly Alliance, it was a bold, brutal declaration that Mortal Kombat still had plenty of secrets and plenty of blood left to spill. So join me as we begin to unearth one more secret, this game's mysterious prototype. To understand the history of Mortal Kombat 6's prototype, we have to turn our attention to HiddenPalace.org. Hidden Palace is a community-driven video game preservation organisation dedicated to archiving and sharing rare and often unseen game development materials, including prototypes, source code, artwork, design documents and unreleased builds. Founded in 2006, the site has become one of the most respected hubs for digital game preservation, hosting hundreds of development builds across many different platforms. Their work plays a vital role in safeguarding gaming history that would otherwise be lost to degradation or obscurity, providing historians, fans and developers with open access to material that reveals how our iconic games were shaped over time. Now here's where things get really interesting though. Using their online resource, it indicates that just 10 days before Mortal Kombat Deception hit shelves in the US, a near final build, internally known as version 0.082, was quietly compiled. which was passed onto the site by an anonymous donor. While it might seem almost identical to the retail release, which was version 0.098, this early snapshot reveals some fascinating leftovers, scrapped ideas, and unfinished touches that never made it into the final game. Buried deep within the game's files, for example, is unused stage data for Acid Bath, a brutal arena from Deadly Alliance that somehow survived all the way into Deception's core pack file, with it only to be cut just before launch. Some elements like fonts in the arcade ladder still hadn't been properly updated, and weirdly, Noob appears on his own without smoke in ladder mode, complete with a different icon for the pair. Even the game's ending feels different. Defeating Onaga triggers the word fatality, as if to tease something grander than what's actually delivered. In Conquest mode, the visual differences continue, with the mission complete box flashing green instead of yellow, and slight text changes in descriptions for Chaos Pendants and Crypt Keys, particularly the ones unlocking Dairu's alternate costume and the Dragon King Temple. And for those curious about playing it today, no dongle protection, and as of March 2021 it's fully emulatable. This isn't just a discarded dev build, it's a peek behind the curtain at a game in flux right on the brink of release. So now we have digged deep into the ever-changing nature of the development of this game, let's turn our attention to what actually hit store shelves. Mortal Kombat Deception first landed in North America on October 4th, 2004 for both the PlayStation 2 and Xbox, before making its way to Europe on November 19th that same year. Interestingly, French players were greeted with a slightly different title, Mortal Kombat Mystification, after it was hilariously discovered that the word deception in French is often interpreted as disappointment. Thankfully, other regions stuck with the original name though. Building on this, a few months later, on February 28, 2005, a GameCube version followed, though only in North America. Still, there was more. For collectors and superfans, 2 special editions hit the market, the Premium Pack on the PS2 and the Collector's Edition on the Xbox. These beefed up versions included a metal trading card and a bonus disc packed with goodies, like a retrospective on the franchise, character video bios, and a lovingly recreated port of the original Mortal Kombat, courtesy of Digital Eclipse. Cover art varied too. Sub-Zero represented the PS2 release, while Xbox owners could choose between Scorpion, Raiden, Baraka, or Mileena. The story of Mortal Kombat Deception picks up immediately after the dramatic conclusion of Deadly Alliance. This time the villains actually won. Shang Tsung and Quan Chi succeeded in wiping out Earthrealm's defenders and used the distraction of their tournament to harvest enough souls to resurrect the unstoppable Invincible Army. With Raiden left as the sole survivor, he makes one last desperate stand against the 2 sorcerers, but even he falls in battle. Of course, in classic Mortal Kombat fashion, the alliance crumbles almost instantly, as Shang Tsung and Quan Chi betray one another in a struggle for Shinnok's amulet, the key to controlling the Undead Legion. Quan Chi emerges victorious, only to come face to face with a threat far greater than he could have ever imagined. The return of the Dragon King Onaga, Outworld's long-lost emperor. Realizing the scale of the danger, Raiden, Shang Tsung and Quan Chi briefly unite to stop Onaga, but even Raiden's full power, palace-destroying explosion barely leaves a scratch on the ancient tyrant. With Onaga now wielding the power of 6 sacred relics known as the Kamidogu, mythical tools capable of unmaking entire realms, the fate of all existence hangs in the balance. Those who survive the onslaught of Deadly Alliance must now rise again to stop Onaga's conquest. But treachery is everywhere. The realm of Edenia has fallen under the control of Mileena, who disguises herself as her noble sister Katana, embodying the game's core theme of deception. Meanwhile, the former heroes have been resurrected by Onaga and turned into his pawns, leaving the fate of the realms more uncertain than ever before. Mortal Kombat Deception didn't just follow in Deadly Alliance's footsteps, it cranked up the chaos up to 11. The arenas might look familiar at first glance, but this time they're packed with brutal surprises. Some stages let you grab weapons mid-fight and turn the tide with a well-timed swing, while others feature branching areas, meaning you can literally knock your opponent through a wall or off a ledge and keep the fight going in an entirely new location. Most deadly of all, the return of stage fatalities in the form of instant-kill death traps. Slip up near one of these hazards and it's game over fast. But the carnage doesn't stop there. Deception also introduced the combo breaker, giving you up to 3 chances per match to stop your opponent's devastating combo strings. And when it comes to finishing moves, this game went all in. Instead of just 1 fatality per fighter like in Deadly Alliance, each character has 2, and a twisted new mechanic mentioned earlier, Harakiri, where you can rob your opponent of their fatality moment by committing an honourable or maybe just petty suicide right before they finish you off. Conquest mode returns too, but this time it's a full-blown adventure game where you roam the realms, complete missions and unlock secrets. The Conquest mode in Mortal Kombat Deception takes what Deadly Alliance started and blows it wide open, transforming what was once a glorified tutorial into a full-blown action-adventure RPG with a story all of its own. This time you're not just learning combos, you're living out the rise and fall of Shujinko, a young martial artist whose journey spans nearly 5 decades. The story begins before the events of the main game, as Shujinko trains under Bo Rai Cho and is soon approached by a mysterious spirit named Damashi, who tasks him with collecting 6 legendary relics, supposedly to help the Elder Gods maintain balance across the realms. But in true Mortal Kombat fashion, things are never what they seem. By the time Shujinko has finished his quest, he's aged into an old man, and it's only then he learns the brutal truth. Damashi was never a servant of the Elder Gods. He was actually Unaga the Dragon King, manipulating Shujinko from the very start to bring him the tools he needed to destroy the realms. It's a shocking betrayal that ties directly into the game's main story and delivers one of the best narrative twists in the series. Gameplay-wise, Conquest blends exploration, side quests, and classic Mortal Kombat combat, with players travelling freely across multiple realms, uncovering secrets, collectible unlockables, and encountering countless familiar faces. You're trained with fighters and master their movesets, but unlike Deadly Alliance, you're no longer forced to complete every lesson to move forward. And even after the main quest ends, the realm remains open for exploration, stuffed with hidden items, keys for the crypt, and surprises waiting to be found. For completionists and lore lovers alike, Conquest isn't just a side mode, it's essential. But we can't talk about Mortal Kombat Deception without providing coverage on the ridiculous minigames. Mortal Kombat Deception didn't just evolve the fighting, it threw in 2 of the most unexpected and widely entertaining minigames in the franchise's history: chess combat and puzzle combat. Let's start with chess combat, which sounds bizarre on paper, but actually works surprisingly well. It's classic chess with a violent Mortal Kombat twist. Each piece on the board is represented by a character of your choice, and when you try to take an opponent's square, it doesn't just happen, you have to earn it in a one-on-one fight. Win the match, claim the square. Lose and your piece is gone. Every character's combat strength and health are determined by their role on the board, so your champion hits harder than a lowly grunt. Add in death trap squares, power-up tiles that boost your whole team, and 2 sorcerer pieces with single-use spells that can revive fallen allies or obliterate a low-ranking enemy, and you've got one of the most creative, chaotic versions of chess ever put into a video game. And then there's puzzle combat, which cranks up the chaos in a completely different way. Clearly inspired by Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo, this fast-paced block dropper features adorable super deformed versions of Mortal Kombat fighters hurling attacks at each other as you clear blocks and build combos. Match colour blocks drop bombs and fill your special meter to unleash character-specific powers. Matches are fought over 2 rounds, arcade style, and the tension ramps up fast as your grid fills and the pressure builds. Far from being throwaway extras, these 2 modes offer fully fleshed out experiences with unique strategies, visuals, and a ton of replay value. They proved that Deception wasn't just about fighting harder, it was about fighting smarter and weirder too, but the game also has some bizarre secrets to offer. Speaking of secrets, the crypt is back, stuffed with unlockable content hidden inside 400 gruesome coffins. While smaller than Deadly Alliance's 676, this crypt is more focused, with some coffins requiring a special key found only in Conquest mode. Inside, players could unlock new arenas, concept art, and 12 bonus fighters, though sadly the GameCube version only kept 6 of them. All in all, Mortal Kombat Deception didn't just build on its predecessor, it weaponized everything fans loved and tossed in even more ways to destroy your friends. But of course, we can't talk about a Mortal Kombat game without talking about its roster. Mortal Kombat Deception features a 26 character roster with 17 returning fighters and 9 making their series debut. Only one character, the fearsome Dragon King Onaga, is unplayable, serving instead as the game's final boss. The lineup offers a strong mix of familiar favourites and bold new additions, helping expand the lore of the Mortal Kombat universe in some surprising directions. Among the newcomers is Ashra, a demoness from the Netherrealm seeking redemption by purging evil through a mysterious magical sword. Dairu, a fallen member of the Sidan Guard, now works as a mercenary and has been hired by the rebel leader Darius, who fights to overthrow the oppressive Order Realm regime. Havoc, a cleric of chaos, wants to revive Shao Kahn and plunge the realm into anarchy, placing him in direct conflict with Hotaru, the rigid commander of the Sidan Guard, who allies himself with Onaga to enforce strict order. Then there's Kira and Cobra, 2 new recruits brought into the reformed Black Dragon by Cabal. One a cunning former weapons dealer, the other a bloodthirsty martial artist. Shujinko, the protagonist of Conquest Mode, begins as a naive warrior manipulated into serving Onaga's return, while Onaga himself towers over the story as a resurrected tyrant bent on using relics to annihilate the realm. As for the returning characters, many are tangled in new alliances and betrayals. Baraka aids Melina in impersonating Katana, sowing chaos within Edenia's ranks. Bo Raicho rescues Li Mai from the grip of the Deadly Alliance, while Ermac, now free from Shao Kahn's control thanks to Kenshi, works alongside the spirit of Liu Kang to liberate Earthrealm's fallen heroes, though Kang's body has been grotesquely reanimated to serve Onaga. Kenshi joins Sub-Zero on a mission to stop Onaga's forces, with Sub-Zero also uncovering ancient truths about his Cryomancer heritage. Jade and Sindel fight to rescue Katana, while Melina, disguised as her sister, continues to manipulate the armies for Onaga's gain. Raiden has sacrificed himself in vain to stop Onaga and returns in a more ruthless form, furious at Shujinko for unwittingly bringing the Dragon King back. Nightwolf chooses to absorb the sins of his tribe to gain the power needed to confront evil in the Netherrealm. Meanwhile, Noob Saibot revives Smoke, transforming him into a loyal servant as they become the dual sub-boss known as Noob Smoke. Tanya returns as a traitor once more, pledging her loyalty to Onaga, while Scorpion, finally freed from his Netherrealm chains, is tasked by the Elder Gods with preventing the Dragon King's conquest. The GameCube version adds 2 fan-favourite characters, Goro and Shao Kahn, both of whom were presumed dead after the events of Deadly Alliance. Joining the lineup of versions of Deception, we would also receive Unchained. Mortal Kombat Unchained is the enhanced PlayStation portable version of Mortal Kombat Deception, developed by Just Games Interactive and released in late 2006. The name Unchained reflects the game's portable nature, no cables, no limits, bringing the brutal world of Mortal Kombat to handheld for the first time. It launched on November the 13th in North America, followed by releases in Australia and Europe later that same month. Unchained isn't just a straight port, it's the most complete version of Deception available, at least in terms of a roster anyway, as it includes all the characters from the GameCube release plus 4 returning fighters from Deadly Alliance who were previously absent. Also in a welcome quality of life change, hidden characters from earlier releases like the zombified Liu Kang are unlocked by default here, a decision made to ensure players could experience everything the game had to offer without grinding through the crypt again. Unchained also brings some exclusive features to the table. Chief among them is Endurance Mode, which throws wave after wave of opponents at you in a non-stop gauntlet of survival. The PSP's wireless ad hoc multiplayer is also fully supported, allowing head-to-head combat without the need for cables. And while Midway didn't develop this version directly, they worked closely with Just Games Interactive to help optimize the code and ensure the game's Wi-Fi and frame rate stayed solid, even on Sony's portable hardware. The result? A remarkably full-featured handheld Mortal Kombat experience that still holds up today. So now we have covered the various versions of the game, let's look at how it was received on release.
Finish her!
Mortal Kombat Deception was generally well received upon its release in 2004, seen by many as a confident step forward for a franchise still redefining itself in the 6th generation of consoles. Critics noted that Midway appeared to be listening to its fans, with many classic characters returning after long absences. This, combined with a rich roster and a robust story mode, helped the game reconnect with Mortal Kombat's loyal fanbase. The game's most praised features are its interactive environments and new mechanics. Reviewers highlighted the stage hazards and environmental death traps as adding a refreshing strategic layer to fights, while the addition of breakers allowed players to interrupt lengthy combos, offering more balanced and competitive gameplay. The developers also removed the overly damaging special move buttons, which had previously led to frustration in Deadly Alliance. Beyond the core fighting experience, the minigames were also considered surprisingly fleshed out, which added a quirky yet welcome change of pace. They said not everything was flawless. Some critics felt that character animations were a bit stiff, even robotic when compared to the slicker visuals of Virtua Fighter 4 or Dead or Alive. The soundtrack too drew criticism for being somewhat basic and unmemorable, and while the core fighting engine had improved, there were still murmurs that Mortal Kombat lagged behind its genre peers in terms of pure mechanical depth. Nevertheless, Mortal Kombat Deception was seen as one of the strongest entries in the 3D era of the franchise. It successfully built on the foundations laid by Deadly Alliance, embraced fan feedback, and demonstrated that Mortal Kombat still had plenty of life and brutality left in it. Many fans and critics alike considered it a highlight of the series' 6th generation run, cementing its legacy as a turning point that helped carry the franchise forward, and for this reason, it remains beloved by some. As for Mortal Kombat Deception's online multiplayer, at the time of its release in 2004, this was a significant leap forward, not just for the series, but for console fighting games in general. It marked the first time a Mortal Kombat title supported online play, available on both the PlayStation 2 via the network adapter and the Xbox through Xbox Live, giving fans the chance to battle opponents from around the world without having to share a couch. The online component allowed for traditional one-on-one matches in both ranked and unranked formats. That said, the additional modes like puzzle combat and chess combat remained offline only, which some fans found disappointing. Nonetheless, having any kind of online functionality in a console fighter at that point in time was seen as an exciting novelty. Of course, the technology wasn't without its flaws. Lag and connection drops were relatively common, particularly for players on slow internet connections. The netcode wasn't the most refined, and the experience could vary widely depending on who you were matched with. Still, considering how early this was in the console online gaming era, Deception handled the feature surprisingly well. It was functional, accessible, and when it worked, many said it was genuinely thrilling. More importantly, Deception's online mode helped pave the way for future fighting games. It demonstrated that there was a real appetite for online competition in the genre, and it proved that such features could be integrated into console releases successfully. Later Mortal Kombat titles, particularly Mortal Kombat 9 in 2011, would go on to refine and expand these foundations, but it was Deception that took the first meaningful step. In retrospect, while the online functionality of Mortal Kombat Deception may seem rudimentary by today's standards, it was groundbreaking at the time. It added real value to the game, re-energized the fanbase, and established a precedent that the series and the genre would continue to build on for years to come. Don't forget that if you haven't yet stepped into the arena with Mortal Kombat 1, now might be the perfect time. Why? Because right now you can grab this timeline twisting reboot at a whopping 63% off using my link down below. But that's not all. If you're anything like me, a retro gamer who grew up during the golden age of Turtles games, you'll be pleased to know you can also snag the Cowabunga collection for a ridiculous 78% off. That's all 13 classics, including the full Game Boy trilogy, arcade brawlers, and Super Nintendo greats, all bundled with bonus extras like concept art and design documents. And if you're just after good deals, there's up to 9% off of loads of other titles too, from Shredder's Revenge, Streets of Rage 4, Street Fighter 6 to Fatal Fury City of the Wolves and beyond. Treat yourself, enjoy the bargains, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheerio!